All right, so this is part 2 of how to tell people that you have avoidant personality disorder. And this is the harder one, which is people you know. If you live with somebody, I recommend telling them. And telling them gently. What I know of this is I have a son. And he learned really, really early, and I don't think I told him. I think he overheard me telling a doctor or something like that. And then he asked me about it, and I told him straightforward, as succinctly and as sort of terrifyingly exactly what it was. And so he has a pretty good clue. He knows, Mom can't be around people, and Mom feels inferior and thinks that she's not good enough for people. And I mean, that's a pretty harsh thing for a kid to know, but he also knows that it's not sort of real. It's, my brain doesn't quite process things the way that other people do. So that if I have that kind of reaction, it's not that somebody's actually been mean to me, it's that I'm thinking things that are not necessarily true. I know somebody else who also has kids, and he waited until they were maybe 16, 17 years old to tell. And that was the choice. And, and it makes sense in that situation too, because again, the avoidance, if you don't actually say I have this thing, it affects you tremendously, but other people, it doesn't sort of impact them in the same way. They just think, okay, yeah, you just don't like hanging out with people, big deal. I mean, a really big deal. Some people are more introverted than others. You might be depressed. Well, depression is completely separate from avoidant personality disorder. And they could recognize, okay, that's a depression, that's not the avoidant personality disorder. And that might be their concern, and they are like, who cares? But I do recommend, if you live with somebody, that you let them know, because weird, quirky things come up, and they could take it personally. Other family members. My immediate family, meaning my parents, know about it. I'm sure they've talked. But I've not had like a conversation with, say, a cousin or anybody like that about it. My father's response, which was kind of bizarre to me, was like, because he's sort of a gruff kind of guy, he was like, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I was like, my goodness, sympathy from you? Wow. My mother, it was a completely different matter. She totally denied it. Couldn't be true. Because, of course, she loves to tell me that everybody thinks I'm a snob, and that's what my problem is that I'm a snob. She also could not tolerate the part of it that said that there was a cause for it, that it had to be triggered by basically abuse. And she couldn't stand that she had anything to do, she's less than perfect. This is impossible. So she did not accept it at all until her therapist told her. And actually her therapist, that was kind of a joke. She had a therapist for maybe 6 weeks until she realized that the woman wasn't going to go along with and agree with everything that she said and actually make her work towards something. And she was like, forget that, I'm not doing this anymore. But she believed it when the therapist said that, if I have diagnosis, I have avoidance. And what she does is she sort of flip-flops. She'll sometimes be like, okay, yes, you have that, but a lot of times she's just, no, don't have it. It's just my choice. It's just the way I'm being. Yeah, I hear that a lot. Why don't I just be normal? Why don't I just go do normal things? Why don't I just react in a normal way? She's like, what is wrong with you that you're avoiding your relatives? I'm like, I'm avoiding my relatives because I avoid everybody. You know, I don't want to get the third degree from them, so I avoid them. Duh. You know, you don't want to talk to everybody all the time, you know, and you get the choice to decide at this time if somebody comes around, you don't want to talk to them. Guess what? I get the same choice. You know, if they come around and they want to talk to me, whatever, that doesn't mean I have to talk to them. It doesn't mean I never talk to them. It's just, you know, no, it's my choices are not so diminished that anybody else's choice supersedes it. And it's taken decades to get that through my head that I do actually can make choices, and you know, I can choose to go along with what everybody else wants me to do, and even though it's going to stress me out terribly and I'll be in recovery for a while, or I can choose to do what's best for me, and sometimes that is to be avoidant and sometimes that's not. But just because somebody else wants something does not mean that what I want doesn't matter and I can't go along with that. That is like against my mother's religion. You know, no, you know, if somebody wants something of me, then I am to give it up, period, at any point. I don't agree with that. Anyway, so that's, I wouldn't tell parents until you actually have a diagnosis, though, because it is basically saying, hey, you did something to screw me up. I mean, unless you can say for sure it was bullying in school, but that's like 5% of avoidant cases are bullying from peers, and the rest are bullying and abusive situations in the family home. So wait till you've got an actual diagnosis from a doctor before you start throwing the label around, because it's, you know, it'll just start a war. They'll just deny it, you know, and if you have nothing to back you up, they'll just say you're being a jerk. People that you've known for a long time, they probably won't care at all. Not one bit. Not to be in a nasty, harsh way, but like, it's a thing to keep in mind is this is really going to make a massive impact on every single part of your life. But it's not making that sort of an impact on other people. And you might think that what you've got is so horrible and so awful, and that, you know, you're damaged because you've got this diagnosis or whatever, and that you're a lesser human being. But if somebody's known you for a long time, they sort of already have a clue. Like the person I knew the longest, when I made this big deal. I was so stressed. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to come out and say I have this diagnosis. I'm such a weirdo, etc. And so I said, yes, I have this thing. It's avoidant personality disorder. And he said, okay, what is that? And I explained it to him. He's like, yeah. So, yeah, that's you. What's the big deal? That's how you are. No big deal at all. I was flabbergasted. It was the most, like, non-impactful thing that I could have said at all. You know, I mean, I think that it would have made a bigger impact if I said, you know, I'm going to go get a soda out of the refrigerator or something like that. Then this big, huge disclosure to me was like, seriously, like, yep, that's how you are. No big deal. So most old friends it's not going to be a big deal at all. For newer friends, well, I think that if you're wanting to tell somebody you just met, I think that's actually the avoidants that are speaking up, trying to make you push them away. So I wouldn't do it. And the other thing to keep in mind is, again, how you're interacting with people is not how most people are interacting with other people. So, you know, you might have a new friend and they might, you know, you might think of them 100 times a day. And they might think of you once a day, maybe once every other day. You know, they might think, oh, look, there's that coffee shop that we went to have a coffee once. And it maybe would go through their heads, and it maybe not. you know, they've got other people in their lives. They've got lots of things going in their lives. It's like you're not the thing that's running through their head all the time. So avoidant people feel really guilty that they're not, you know, speaking up every time somebody pops into their head. But that's sort of average. You know, you're thinking of them a lot more than they're thinking of you, but your level of interaction is probably equal to what they would interact with you for, because I don't know, I mean, it's sort of uneven like that. So give yourself a break if you're not interacting with them every second. As far as they invite you out to do X, Y, and Z thing, you know, again, it's a choice thing. People don't care if you say, oh, well, that's just not my thing, or I'm just busy that time, or, you know, I got to do this. As long as you don't come up with something completely, utterly lame. I mean, like, you know, the traditional turn somebody down for a date was to say, I have to wash my hair. I mean, it's like a shot in the teeth. That's, you know, give me a break. You don't have to say that. But now people have lives, and they know, because I'm just busy, you know. I've got relatives coming in that week. I've got, it's an extra busy week at work. I'm going to start Whole30 that week. You can come up with a million excuses, and it's not going to really make an impact on somebody until you've denied maybe 15 or 20 requests to get together. And actually people will just learn. They'll be like, okay, well, this person is not into group things. So I'm only going to invite them to quiet things and one-on-one things where there aren't a lot of people and there aren't a lot of crowds. People figure that out. You know, you usually don't have to say anything. You know, as long as you're accepting one-on-one sort of safe interactions, you're not completely blowing them off for everything. You know, you're being friendly in a way that's sort of something you can handle. Then it's okay if you're denying the other times that they might want to get together with you. And again, in most cases, if you're depressed, that's much, much more of an important, impactful thing than if you are avoidant. I mean, so you're avoidant, you avoid crowds. Lots of people avoid crowds. You know, you could be freaking out that somebody is getting too close to you. There are ways to not freak out. There are ways to subtly sort of step back and say, you know, this is happening. But if somebody has been a really good friend of yours for, I would say, minimum of 4 months, where you're interacting on a very regular basis as a friend, then I would maybe, but it depends on the situation, depends how close you are, but I would give it a good long time. I would not say right off the bat that you're avoidant, especially because people are ashamed of it and they feel like it's admitting that they're damaged goods. But if your avoidance is making somebody feel bad, that making them feel like you're rejecting them, that is when I would tell them. And I just be straightforward and not apologetic, and not say, oh my goodness, it's impacting my entire life and it's terrible and blah, blah, blah. You don't need to give them all the details. You just need to say, I have this thing, this is how it manifests, and you're really cool, and you make me want to not be avoidant when I'm around you. And let me tell you, that goes pretty far.